Kia ora everyone and welcome to this trapping workshop. My name is Boyd Steele and I work as a pest-free coordinator in West Rodney, Auckland. I've been involved in conservation for about a decade now and just am obsessed with helping our wildlife. And I thought I'd put together this workshop for people who are looking to start trapping, or maybe you've done a bit of trapping before and just want to sharpen up a little bit. I will do a foreword that it's definitely not the trapping Bible, because there definitely isn't only one way that you should trap. There's lots of different ways, lots of different techniques, and good trappers will look at all different techniques, try lots of things, but this hopefully can help you out and hopefully you can learn something. So we'll crack into it. Firstly, why do we trap? Why do we have to trap in New Zealand? Well, our birds lived for 60 odd million years without any mammals as predators. So all our birds only had to be wary of other birds attacking them, things like eagles, falcons, etc. So they evolved over time to avoid those predators by spending way more time on the ground, living in burrows, nesting in little holes in trees, and a lot of our birds stopped flying altogether. So that was all good when it was just birds trying to hunt them, but once mammals arrived with humans, that was a really bad techniques for a lot of those birds. So we've lost over 50 bird species already since the mammals came to New Zealand. And here's just a couple of pictures here of a South Island snipe and a bush wren, some of the later bird species that we've lost, and it's just a good reminder of why we have to protect what we have left. So let's just get into how trapping can help even on a smaller scale. I want you to pretend you have a bush block on your property and you've got 100 possums living there. And you want to put a couple of traps out. And, if you're, checking your traps, you're hoping to catch one possum each week for a year. So maybe you'll catch 50 possums in the year. Let's pretend half the possums are male, half the possums are female. This is not scientific, but let's just have a go anyway. So in the first year, you catch half your possums, you're left with 50. Possums have, give or take, one baby a year, so you have another 25 born. You've got 75 possums without control, or you've got 150 possums. Let's just see how that goes over 5 years if you just catch half the possums on your property each year. And you can see pretty quickly that after 5 years, you can keep those possum numbers under, real control, and without trapping, your possum numbers would just explode, which is what has happened throughout the entire country. And, you don't have 760 possums on your property. They've gone everywhere. They've invaded your neighbour's property and all your friends have got possums now. So that is just a simple little, very unscientific graph to show just how, with control, you can help keep animals like possums down. And that was easy to do with possums because they do only have that sort of one, maybe two babies a year, so it was easy to graph. Wouldn't be so easy with rats and stoats. Now, when it comes to trapping, there's three sort of important things that I think that you need to be aware of. Once you've decided what trap you're going to use for what you're trying to target, the next three things is location, interaction, and just the finer details around your trap. Okay, so in that order, if you don't have a good location, things aren't going to find your trap. When they do find your trap, you need them to interact with it. And when they do interact with it, well, you need your finer details around your trap to be perfect to make sure they actually do go in and end up, going right into your trap. So location is definitely number one with any trap, whether it's a mouse at home or you're out in the bush targeting possums, stoats, ferrets, etc. These animals do not just move through the entire bush, every part of it. They're using the trails, and they use these same trails night and night, or every night, over and over again. Possums, mustelids, everything. So if you find the trails, for example, here's a Doc 200 in the middle of the bush with no human trails at all, this is a game trail. I found that game trail. Game will be using it, deer, etc. The stoats, possums, rats, they'll be using these same trails. They'll be following other scent lines. So find these trails, and that's where you should put your traps. These animals, they need to feel safe when they're engaging with your trap. If you put your trap out in the middle of a big open field, well, they're not going to feel very safe there. Think ridges, think rivers, think the edges of roads, think bush lines, the edge of the bush. If you're walking along the edge of the bush, you'll see lots of little peawalkers floating around the edge of the bush, catching little bugs, etc. This is also where the animals are hunting. Think edges, think the edges of things. That is where you want to be targeting a lot of the mammals that we're trying to catch. Here's an example of a possum and a possum trap. So let's say you're a farmer and you're grazing some paddocks and you've got some fence around the bush, like in this picture here. You'll be able to walk along this fence line, have a look at the long grass, and see where the animals are coming out of the bush. And here's a perfect example. Let's put a possum trap right there. We'll use the ramp that's already there, and we can also make it easier on ourselves by not having to trap all into the bush. We can see the animals are using that path. So that's where we're going to put our trap. Location is the most important thing, team, when it comes to trapping. If you've started trapping and after a little while, after a month or so, you're really not having much luck, the first thing you should do is try moving your trap. Sometimes you just get your location wrong. Even if you thought it's a good spot, sometimes your location's wrong. The animals aren't obviously using that trail all the time. Try moving your trap. All traps work and all traps can fail. So don't always blame the trap. Try moving the locations first, okay? Now, interaction. How do we get more interaction with our traps? So you've got the good location, that's the first thing. Now, a lot of animals that turn up to your trap don't actually engage with it. If you have a trail camera and if you want to get better at trapping, you should definitely get yourself a trail camera, put it on your traps, and you'll start seeing animal behavior, and you'll start learning that a lot more turns up to your trap than actually goes into it. So how can we make our traps look better? How can we put different baits in there to bring animals in? Just a couple of examples there. You've got a cage trap and you've put grass all over it, trying to make it look more natural. There's a nice fresh rat hanging in that Dock 250 trap there. These are just examples. It's not the golden rules, remember. It's just different examples of how do we get more interaction with our trap. On this picture on my left here, you might not be able to see it, but there's a Dock 250 trap targeting ferrets underneath all those rocks on a game trail. And you can see out the front of that trap, I've scuffed all the ground up with a little shovel or a spade or something, trying to get that fresh earth that brings animals in as well. You can see there's a bit of pre-lure out there as well. Pre-feeding your traps is really important. Whatever you've got in the trap, if you're putting a little bit of meat in, put some meat out front of your trap, rub it all over the front of your trap. Give them a little bit of free food to bring them into the trap. These traps are not always a natural part of the environment. You need these animals to think that, hey, this is food. This is food. I'm going to go in there because there's more food in there. On the right, you can see there's a ferret caught in that trap with a fresh rat hanging in that trap. And now, once you're trying to get more interaction, it is just down to those finer details around your trap. Here's a good example where the finer details of a trap are not great. You can see the trap on the left has just been left to go into a bit of disrepair. All the long grass and everything has grown up around it. Even if an animal finds your trap, it's going to be pretty hard for it to get into it. So just doing little things like on the right here, scuffing up around your trap, making sure your trap is nice and bedded into the ground and it doesn't move. You don't want the animal to step inside the trap and then get a bit of a fright. Maybe because the trap moves, or maybe the edges on the mesh on that Dock 200 there aren't great. Make sure, take the time, file those edges back on the traps, and make sure those final details on your trap are perfect. Everything is set well on your trap, so that if the animal does engage with your trap, we catch it. Right, let's get into the critters that we're actually going to be targeting. Obviously, a lot of people will start off trapping and they'll want to trap rats. And we have 3 different types of rats in New Zealand, but the main 2 that most people will be targeting are ship rats and Norway rats. This is a ship rat here. You can tell by its long tail longer than its body. And the Norway rats are generally the bigger rats that you catch. So if you catch a really big rat, that will generally be a Norway rat or a brown rat. And now rats, by sheer number, they would do devastating damage to our wildlife each year. They may not do as much damage per individual, but just because the rats breed so quickly, rats can have a litter of rats a month in really, really good conditions. And we give rats those good conditions around our houses and our barns with our compost bins. They have lots of food, lots of warmth. The rats can have lots of babies. So just a pair of rats can become a lot in a really short space of time. So I'm going to go through all the home ranges of all the predators we're targeting. And I like to use a rugby field as a bit of a guide because that makes sense to me, and I hope it does to you too. So the home range of a rat for a ship rat generally is about the 22. The 22 of a rugby field. If you think of that, that's about the home range of a ship rat. So that shows you how hard it is going to be for us to get rid of rats in New Zealand, because if rats are having such a small home range, you need that many traps in that many different areas to get rid of rats, and they breed so quickly and they just move out into different areas. Okay, so sometimes the bigger Norway rats can have a bigger home range, I think one rugby field, if they are looking at a bit further afield for food, but still a pretty small home range. So rats are definitely one of the hardest species to really keep on top of numbers, because small home range, fast breeding. Right, some of the simple sort of single kill traps to catch rats. One of my favourites, this is called the D-rat. The D-rat traps, and you've got a few different options. You've got the one on the left there, you can see all the rat hanging out. That's a bit more safer for your pets, your birds, etc. Putting their beaks in there and all little kids' hands going in. And you've got the ones on the right too, which are a bit more exposed, a bit more easier for rats as well. The more open the trap, the more likely animals are going to engage with it. But you do have the options there if you are worried about pets. And these are really simple to use. You can bait them with peanut butter, Nutella, mayonnaise, lots of different baits you can use for rats. But peanut butter is always a go-to. It works really well. But mix up your baits for all your animals you're trapping. What works for one might not work for another. These are really good because you can't open them when they're set. You have to unset them before you can actually open them up and bait them. So they're a really good option. You might have seen these before. These are called a Victor rat trap, and they're quite popular amongst trapping groups. They're a bit more bigger, a bit more cumbersome, bigger things to lug around, but they're super efficient as well. You can see just like a big mouse trap there on the right hand side, and it's got a small entrance on the front with the mesh stapled on, and the mesh on the back you can just slide out, take your trap out, bait it, put it back in again, or get rid of the rats once you get them. They're a good option too. They just go on the ground most of the time, whereas the D-rats are quite good because you can put them up in trees, etc. So they're both good options, and you can usually pick those Victor rat traps up pretty cheap from your local pest-free group. When it comes to automatic traps, you've got the Good Nature A24, which has been around for quite a while now. And I generally just look at this as a rat and mouse trap. You might pick up the odd stoat in it, the odd weasel. I haven't had a lot of luck with them, with stoats and weasels, but I mean, they're a chance, and I've seen videos and pictures of them getting stoats before, but personally I've never got one. But I do look at them as a effective rat and mouse trap, especially for areas on your property maybe where you can't get to as often. It's good to remember with any automatic trap that you still need to treat it like a trap. You just can't put it there and expect it to do the work for you. What is good about a resetting trap is that it does reset, and you can see here that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rats in this picture, and I haven't had to do anything. A little bit of lure comes through the top, and there's a trigger there that when the rat goes up to get more lure, it triggers a blunt instrument that kills it instantly. It drops out, and it's good to go again. And you'll get about 6 months of gas out of one of those canisters before you need to change that gas bottle and change the lure as well. And there's a little chirp in there that chirps to your phone when you get close and lets you know how many strikes you've had on that trap. So you're really important to remember with that trap, it's just like any other trap. If it's not catching, try moving it around, try taking it over there. And you won't, let's just see how they work actually. So this is how they work. Here's a rat. Boom. Gets whacked and is done. Bye bye rat. And they're not always there for this exact reason. This was the very next day actually. The Stoat comes along and he finds the rat and he gets himself a free lunch. Off he goes. So you'd come along now, the trap would tell you that it's killed something and you would think that it's lying to you, but this is what happens once Stoat's wildcats, other rats find a free feed, they're going to dig in and take them away. So just because it's not there doesn't mean that you didn't get something. So they're a really efficient rat and mouse trap as well. Right, possums. Lots of people will have problems with possums if you have any orchards at your house or fruit trees, etc., and they'll be coming and raiding your fruit trees, but they're also, devastating to our native bush. On the whole, they eat so much of our native forest every night. And not only do they eat our forest, they also get stuck into our birds' eggs, and as well as our birds as well. Possums don't just eat, they're not vegetarian, they eat everything. They eat whatever they come across. They'll get stuck into some meat as well. I catch plenty of possums when I'm using meat and traps, so they do enjoy it. The home range for possums, you're looking at a bit of a smaller home range for the females, looking sort of 1 to 5 rugby fields, and the males have a slightly bigger home range, sort of 10, could potentially go up to 25 if they're having to go a bit further looking for food. And the bigger the home range these animals have, that actually works in our favour, because we need less traps in an area to be effective and to catch these animals. So that's why, going back to rats, that's why you need more traps, smaller home ranges. Because the possums are going further, you don't need as many possum traps. When it comes to possums, just like everything, location is so important, and these are the locations you're looking for on your property. Look at these possums. They're having a bit of a scrap. There's a possum caught there in the flippy Timmy. These other possums don't care at all. They're there. They're scrapping. There's food around. They're looking to mate at different times of the year. And these are the areas that you're looking for on your property. These possum trails where they have been possibly walking these same trails for years. And I guarantee you'll have 1 or 2 traps on your property that catches all the possums, because you've just found the perfect spot. So just unlike that last picture that I had up, if you do find the perfect spot and you're using single kill traps, then no harm in putting a couple of traps in the same place. When it comes to possums, for your single kill traps, there's a few options out there. You've got the Trapinator on the left, which is a really efficient possum trap. It's probably the easiest to use. It's got that little lever on the side, really easy to set and unset without having to open up the trap. You can set it, unset it, open it up, and it's quite effective for just using baits like pastes, like a peanut butter, or you've got your blue lure from Conservation. You can put fruit on the bar. It's a bit harder. You've got to take the bar out and put the fruit on, put the bar back in, but they're a really effective possum trap. You've got the Steve Allen 2 and the Steve Allen range of possum traps. He does several possum traps. The good thing about the Steve Allen 2 is that you can also use those for targeting feral cats, but a lot of the time when I'm targeting feral cats, I'll catch possums. Like I said, they do like a bit of meat, but you could also bait those with fruit as well, and then if you were looking to target feral cats, you could bait them with meat. And then you've got the Flippy Timmy trap there on the right, one of the really popular ones, kind of replaced the old Tim's trap that used to go on the ground, but now they go on trees. Once again, really easy to use, super simple to bait with fruits or whatever you're using. And you can see on that picture on the right how I've got that that pre-feed underneath. That's a flour and icing sugar cinnamon mix, sort of looking at 3/4 flour, 1/4 icing sugar, and that's a really popular blaze lure that people will use for possum traps. It's really visual. Possums will come in, they'll get that all over their feet and their lips and their whiskers, and then maybe they'll walk off into the bush and they'll leave little trails of ice and sugar and flour everywhere to bring other possums in. So all 3 of those traps work really well for possums. Just so you know, any trap that will catch a possum could potentially catch a cat as well, okay? So don't go setting your traps at home with meat if you are worried about catching someone's pet cat, because any trap that can catch a possum, a cat can also put its head in there, okay? So all good if you're targeting feral cats out in the wild, but if you're at home, you want to be careful around that, okay? When it comes to automatic traps, the AT220 by NZ Auto Traps is really amazing. It's such a good trap, but I think it's been a real game changer over the last few years for our effectiveness out in the wild, and so many groups are getting around these traps now. As you can see in these pictures, this is a really common sight. These aren't just one-off, two-off instances where there's piles of possums under a trap. They are really effective. They come with a mayonnaise pouch in them, and it's their own special mayonnaise. There's a rechargeable battery, and it works off two sensors in there. There's a little cup in there. The mayonnaise goes into the cup, and then some of the mayonnaise comes out. It puts more mayonnaise out every few days, and the mayonnaise will come out, drip onto that little running board that I've got there. And then the possums come up, have a bit of a feed, and they'll go up, and then they get whacked, they fall out. And yeah, I cannot recommend an AT220 enough. They are such amazing traps. If you're a busy person and you don't think you're going to be able to check your traps as often as you'd like, but you can afford these, they are a bit more upfront, looking at sort of $560 per trap, but they're worth every penny in the time that you save. And just think you come back 6 months later, and this is what you'll see underneath your traps. And they're just as effective at catching rats. You'll catch more rats than anything else under them. They absolutely smoke the rats. Just like the A24s, guys, just don't forget about them. Don't leave them out in the bush, and just think they're out there, and you don't have to worry about them anymore. Things like this can happen where the rats can get stuck up in the traps, or maybe a possum gets his arm stuck up in there. Things can happen, so make sure every once in a while you go and check on your trap, make sure it's all clear, and they have an app that you can connect to your trap, make sure the sensors are all good, and just keep an eye on it, okay? So if your trap is really effective and it's catching lots, well, then it's going to run out of mayonnaise faster. It's going to run out of battery faster. So it doesn't hurt to keep an eye on your automatic traps. And once again, your location is still important. These work so well because the pre-feeding, it keeps pumping out mayonnaise every couple of days. That just makes them so effective. Right, let's get into our mustelids. We have the 3 different types of mustelids in New Zealand: weasels, stoats, and ferrets. And yeah, the weasels are sort of probably not talked about as much as the other two. This is quite a cool video, actually. It's just showing what these animals are doing all the time. That weasel is into that little hole looking for food. No, nothing in there, it's off. And that is what mustelids are doing all the time. They are constantly looking for food. They're always hunting, looking to catch things and store them. So yeah, weasels have a relatively small home range, 1 to 3 rugby fields for the female, 4 to 12 for the male, and pretty much any trapping that you're doing, targeting, stoats, etc., will be effective for weasels. The Doc 200, the Doc series, Doc 200s, Doc 250s are effective traps for your mustelids. Weasels are quite light. They're quite light. They can be lighter than rats. So if you are living somewhere where you have a lot of weasels, make sure that your trap is calibrated. Your Doc 200 trap is calibrated to catch those smaller female weasels. But yeah, your Doc 200 series is your go-to for targeting weasels. And just a reminder, when it comes to all the traps that you're doing, pre-feeding is so important. It's like if you left a massive cake in front of me and gave me a little bit of cake. I'm going to go for the rest of the cake. So when it comes to possums, you can see there, that's that blue cinnamon lure from Conservation that I talked about. On this other trap on the left, the Doc 250, I've got an egg in there, and I've cracked an egg on the front, giving them a little bit to bring them into your traps, just to bring their guard down, make them think that this is food and this is comfortable. Here we go, onto stoats now. And yeah, stoats sort of public enemy number 1. And they are such ferocious killers, It's a really widely known fact that, in the wild, only about 5% of kiwi chicks will survive to adulthood, and stoats are just one of the number one reasons, because they just take out so many kiwi chicks, and they're just always on the go. So here he is, he's back, he's off. Well, couldn't find any food, but I'm off. So this is a good example of location's good. I've got the location right. Stoats found my trap, but I couldn't. I got a bit of interaction, didn't I? I got a bit of interaction there, but couldn't get that final step in. So that's once again where trail cameras are so effective. You can see what you've got on your property, and you can think, right, okay, I need to have a bit of a play with this trap. What can I put in this trap that's going to make him go in there? Because he is looking, he's seen it, and no doubt he'll be back again. But so what can we do to make this trap more inviting? So the home range for the stoat's got a much bigger home range compared to the weasel. So you're looking at 30 to 60 rugby fields for a female and 60 to 200 for a male. So big territories. So for these mustelids, for your stoats and ferrets, you can have less of these dog traps on your property, but so important that you're using them, efficiently. You don't want to just be plunking one there, walking 150 meters, plunking another one there. I've already talked about it, but you want to be targeting the areas that you're going to be catching them. You want to be targeting those riversides, the ridge lines, the edges of the roads, the bush edges. These are the places they're going to be hunting. Look for their trails, and if you're not catching anything, try moving your traps around, okay? So yeah, for the weasel, for the stoat, your Doc 200, Doc 250 are your most effective tools for targeting them. This is a picture from a few years ago where in certain times of the year, sort of going to that spring period, if you do catch a fresh female stoat, leave it in your trap, and this male came in the very next night looking for her. That time of the year, the male stoats are pretty keen to get after the females, so it's a really effective way actually for catching mustelids is actually using other mustelid scents to bring in other ones, okay? In terms of baits for these mustelids and everything else, there is so many different baits that you can use, and if you talk to trappers all over the country, you'll get all these different opinions of what bait works well for them. So which is, you should take that on board and know that, well, there's lots of good baits in, because what works well somewhere won't always work well somewhere else. These animals might be feeding on different things over the different times of the year and in different parts of the country. So mix up your baits. Personally, I have a lot of luck using fresh rats. Here's a stoat. There's a fresh rat caught in that trap, and look how quickly he goes in after it. He went straight in. He was pretty keen for it. So if you're catching fresh rats in your house, or around your house, or in your dock traps, don't let them go to waste. Use them as bait. Hang them up in your traps, and trust me, stoats love a fresh rat, especially throughout that winter when there's not as many birds, eggs, chicks for them to get into. Okay, so fresh rats as bait. This is just a funny photo. This is rats catching other rats. I wanted to see how many nights I could keep hanging rats in the trap. Caught one rat, hung it up. Next night had another rat, hung two up. Next night had a third rat in there. Hanging rats in your trap definitely won't put off other rats from coming into your traps. Okay, so fresh rats make great bait. Rightio, ferrets, the biggest of the mustelids in New Zealand, and just really devastating for our larger birds. And unlike the rats, where as a whole population they have devastating effects, just one individual ferret can really have massive impacts on our bird population. They can wipe out a whole kiwi population in one go, or your nesting seabirds, and they're one of the predators we have here in New Zealand that can actually take down adult kiwi. Massive home ranges, as you can see. Quite variable, but 30 to 150 rugby fields for females, 200 to 500 rugby fields for males. And what we're sort of learning about ferrets, what I've learned about ferrets, is that they have these big home ranges, and they will sort of routinely cover their home range, using the same trails. And it takes them around about 10 days to cover their whole territory. This is where a camera came really in handy. I had a camera on this AT220 here, and I got this ferret just rubbing itself in the plank, and off it goes, off, following its route that it's probably following every 10 days. So I went and put that trap on the right there. That's a Steve Allen ferret trap. They're not making them anymore, but I put that trap right underneath that AT220, and 10 days later, on the day from catching it on video, I caught that ferret in that spot, using a bit of actually dried ferret skin. So once again, that idea of using other mustelids to catch more mustelids. So yeah, ferrets, really big problem and massive territories, but if you're using your trail cameras, if you can find out where their exact trails are, then you can use traps to put in the exact spots that they're probably going to be coming back to again. Okay, another couple examples here. So Dock 250s are the way to go for catching ferrets, that bigger entrance. And both of these ferrets here have fallen to the same bait, which is a fresh rat in a trap with a chook egg in there as well, and a bit of nesting to make it look a bit more natural. And it really is a good idea to have a Dock 250 as part of your trapping set. They are harder to set, you need a bit more strength, but you can buy tools that make them really easy to set. So if you're targeting ferrets, you're going to catch stoats, you're going to catch other things as well. So Dock 250s are a really great trap, and I definitely recommend having one of those in your set, even if you need to buy a tool to make you feel more confident when it comes to setting it. Right, feral cats have just been added to the list for predator free as a species that we need to get under control. And you hear ranging numbers about how many feral cats we have in New Zealand, and these aren't pet cats that have been dumped. These are animals that have been wild their whole existence and are out there, trying to survive. And trying to survive for a wild cat is hunting a lot, taking out a lot of our wildlife. So they have massive home ranges, feral wildcats, see up to 300 rugby fields for a female, and potentially up to 1,000 rugby fields for a male. So we need to be really sensitive around the subject of targeting wildcats, but we must, also, talk about it and be, respectful that a lot of people in New Zealand, have, pet cats that are cherished members of, of their family. And the last thing we want to be doing as a trapping community is, intentionally targeting, somebody else's cat, or even, by accident. We need to be really, good communication. If we are targeting wildcats in an area where potentially there is pet cats as well, we need to, have clear communication with people there. But they are, a massive problem, and we do need to be, we do need to, target them. You can see here, this is the same video before that the ferret was in, and you can see he's following exactly the same trail that ferret was tracking. That's why trails make the best places for traps. When it comes to targeting cats team, I've already mentioned it, but the Steve Allen 2 is a really effective kill trap for targeting cats. And that set there, you can see on my left, I've got quite a low set. If you were somewhere where you had kiwi or weka or other ground nesting birds, that would need to be a lot higher, and on a steep enough angle that no ground dwelling birds could walk up there and put their head in there. Okay. So if you don't, then I do enjoy a low set like that, because I think it's better for engagement. But if you are somewhere with kiwi weka, that's going to have to be higher. When just talking about pet cats before, if you are worried, there is, cage traps, live cage traps are a great option. They do need to be checked daily by law. So if you are setting a live cage trap, you need to have a plan. If I catch something, what am I going to do if I catch something in that live cage trap? Don't just set a cage trap and then think, I'll sort that out later. Talk to your neighbours. Do you have a gun? Can you do something with it? Does your neighbour have a gun? Is he happy to do something with it if you do catch something in that trap? There are several companies that you can use that actually will this one here on the right, you can see it's got like a node on it, and that will send me a text when it goes off, so I don't have to check it every day. So that is an option too if you are, looking to track cats. Well, guys, that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope you have taken something from that. The best thing that everyone can do is just get out there and do their bit, whether it's trapping, whether it's, planting trees, whether it's just being involved and being supportive of the whole predator-free initiative. Start by trapping rats in your backyard and see how you go. And it's just an amazing thing to be a part of, and to think that we have this chance to protect our wildlife and hopefully, rewild some of these spaces around New Zealand that have, we've lost so many birds from, and so much of our wildlife. So hopefully, together as a country, we can do this, and we can make a lasting impact that for years to come, people will be able to enjoy our wildlife. Thank you.